Hi, welcome to my channel. It's been a long time since I filmed everything. It's been about 4 weeks just because we've been pretty busy here having a baby. So this is our new little guy. So I wanted to get on today and tell you what his name is and just kind of go through my labor and delivery story, and then also how everything's been going the last almost 4 weeks. He's almost 4 weeks old. And so that's kind of what we're gonna do today in this video and try to keep him happy. So hopefully it'll be short and sweet. Okay, so first off, I wanted to tell you what his name is. So here he is. He's awake right now since he just got fed, but he probably will get tired. So hopefully he'll stay happy for the whole time. But his name, since I haven't said it anywhere, I posted pictures and stuff like that, but I haven't said, is Locke Odin Paulson. And so I've mentioned before how it was so hard for us to pick a name. Boys have been hard for me in general. Like all of our boys have been so difficult for me. And even once we pick their names, I'm still like, is this what we want? I don't really know. My husband's kind of the one that picks them. And so last summer, when my brother-in-law was here, he recommended Locke, like with an E on the end, L-O-C-K-E. And I was like, I don't know. I'm like, it is unique, which our other boys' names are also unique. And our oldest name is Mazer, which is from Ender's Game. And Locke is also in Ender's Game. And somehow all of our kids ended up with 5 letters in their name. I don't even know how that happened. We didn't plan it that way. That's just what happened. So then when we were looking for names, we were looking for 5-letter names, which is why my brother-in-law recommended Locke. And so I was like, oh, we'll think about it. So my husband started making this list of names, and all my other kids' names are also from books, and they have these deeper meanings behind them or things that are more personal to us. And so I was wanting that for him as well. Are you gonna stay happy? And so as we were trying to work through names, that's what I'm like, I just don't know anything. I wasn't planning on this. I don't know what to do. And so a couple months ago, my husband was going back through this list of names and nothing was really standing out to me, but again, it never did with any of our boys. And so my husband's like, well, there's still Locke, we could still do that. So then he just started using it and calling the baby Locke. And he's like, how do you feel about that? And I never felt bad about it, but I never was like, oh, for sure. Like with my girls, I just knew for sure, but my boys, I just never did. So I was like, I think it's fine because I just never felt that way for any of them. So it's the same thing. But one of the reasons we chose the name is, so in Ender's Game, the name is inspired by John Locke, who was a philosopher who lived quite a while ago. But back in that time, philosophers crossed over what the areas of study. And so it wasn't just like, oh, we just study this one thing. They usually had multiple fields that they studied. Well, my husband's an economist and I study human development. And John Locke talks about stuff with economists. I don't know what I'm saying here. We're sleep deprived over here. Anyways, and so my husband teaches some of the stuff that John Locke taught or studied. And then also there's tabula rasa, which is the blank slate idea, which is a human development nature versus nurture idea. And so he studied both of our areas of study, if that makes sense. This video might be a little bit wonky because who knows what I'm talking about right now. Anyways, and so since he crossed over into both of our fields, we're like, oh, that could be cool as well. And so that's where his first name came from, and that's what we decided to do. And again, sometimes it's still a little bit weird, but my other boys were weird, so I'll just get used to it. But then his middle name is Odin, and my husband's family, he's from Iceland, just a couple generations back, his dad's family. And we love marble. And so the Norse mythology with Thor and Odin and Loki, all those things, it's always been this joke like, okay, should we name this child Thor? And I was never okay with naming a child Thor. And this was before the whole like 5-letter thing, before we noticed that we were setting a trend here. And so with our last boy, I was like, oh, we could do Odin for his middle name, but then we chose a different middle name. So then with him, we started just calling him Baby Odin before he was even born. So our kids called him that. And so that's what his middle name is. And most of the time now they call him Locke, but sometimes baby Odin still comes out. So that's where his name comes from. So his middle name is part of my husband's heritage, but also part of Norse mythology and our love for Marvel. So that's the explanation of his name. Hopefully that all makes sense. And then when he was born, he was 8 pounds, 8 ounces, which is basically on trend for all of my children. He was smaller. He was the 4th in size. So only my 5-year-old was smaller than him by just a couple ounces. And then everybody else was several ounces bigger than him. And so my labor and delivery, it went pretty well. So I was gonna grab my hypnobirthing books and I forgot to bring them down. So I'll link some of them below because those were extremely helpful. I really wanted to have this baby natural. I was induced, so that part wasn't natural, but I did not get an epidural with this one. But we went in early in the morning to start everything, but I was barely, I was maybe 1.5 centimeters dilated. And so it was gonna be a long day because I have a hard time dilating, but then once I get to like a 6 or a 7, I dilate fairly quickly, and then I have a baby really, really fast. And so I was like, okay, this is kind of the trend of it. And when we lived in Connecticut, my last 3 kids were born in Connecticut, and my oldest was born in Utah. And those 3, they do what they call a walking epidural. So it kind of numbs some of the contractions, but then when it comes time to push, you can feel most of it. And then you get up basically right after. It's worn off enough that you're not numb or anything, and they get you up and use the bathroom and all that kind of stuff. And at first, when I had that with my second child, I was like, I don't know if I like this. But then as I continued to have kids, I was like, oh, I like being able to feel what I'm doing. I don't like being completely numb like I was with my first one. And so now we're back in Utah, and I'm like, I don't want to be completely numb. I'm just gonna have him without an epidural, but I'm really gonna need to work on my breathing if we're gonna do that. So that's why I read so many books and practiced my breathing all the time, and it was key. It was key to surviving and making it through. So most of my contractions for a big part of the day were not too bad. So he was born at 6:02 at night, and we started the Pitocin at like 7:30 in the morning, and they broke my water at 11:30. And so between that time, I had contractions, but they were irregular and just not very painful. We just sat there and watched HGTV, and my husband was like, I've just sat here all day long. And then, they started to pick up a little bit, but still weren't too bad. It was really just the last couple hours. But I liked, I still had to, I had the Pitocin, and I would have had to have an IV anyways because I was strep B positive. So I had 3 doses of penicillin and stuff throughout that whole time. But it was nice because I got up, I was more mobile this time than I ever have been before. Even before the epidural with my other pregnancies, I still just wouldn't really get up. But this one I would get up, and they brought out the ball, the exercise ball, whatever you call those things. And I sat on that for a while. And I really loved that one of the hypnobirthing books talked about having your feet on the ground sometimes is very helpful when you're laboring, just to feel grounded. And it was sitting on the ball with my feet on the ground and bouncing was extremely helpful. And then I stood up for a little while, kind of walked around, but when it was really bad, I just sitting with my legs kind of crossed, I guess, crisscross applesauce, sort of in that position on the bed. That was the most comfortable position for me to be in that helped not be so painful. But I had a certified midwife. That's who I saw throughout all of my pregnancy, my prenatal appointments, all that kind of stuff. And she was amazing, amazing, amazing. I can't say enough good things about her. The last few hours she came in and she sat there with us. She helped with different positions. She massaged my legs and got my husband to come over. She's like, here's some lotion. Let's massage her calves. And she was just great. And she's like, you can birth however you want. And I just loved her so much. It was such a great experience. My experience in Connecticut was fine, but it was just with a bunch of different people because it was just a rotating thing. So whoever was on call was who delivered your baby and all that kind of stuff. And it was a doctor, which the doctors were still great, but the midwife experience was totally different. And I just absolutely loved her. I just really, really can't say enough good things about her. And even afterwards, my husband was like, she was so, so great. And so I really appreciated everything that she did, and just helping me remember, because I would tense up, you know, and pull my shoulders up. So she, as I'm breathing through contractions, would tell me, oh, relax your shoulders, you know, and just kind of help me talk through it. And it was a good thing she's there, because I had told all of them, once I decide to go, I just go really, really fast, and the baby just comes out. And so she was there with me, and then she had a medical student. And so the medical student came up and joined her. So the two of them were there, and I had a nurse that was with me all day, right? Because we got there at 6, so we were basically there for her whole like 12-hour shift. And she's like, oh no, you're not gonna have the baby before I leave at 6 o'clock. And so I was like, oh, I can't control this, hopefully, you know, but I think it was like a little bit after 5, and I was at a 7. And they checked me again at like 10 minutes to 6, or maybe a little bit before that. And I was at a 9. And then just a few minutes later, you know, I'm breathing through a contraction, but then I like can't breathe through it anymore. And my nurse had left. It was just the midwife and the medical student in there with my husband. And sorry, my nose is gonna run. We've all had colds and stuff. But, and so they were just in there. And I am breathing through this contraction, and then I let out this slight like moan, and my husband's like, uh-oh, like the baby's coming. You know, he's been with me with all the other ones and knows like when that happens, the baby is coming now. And so the midwife and the med student are putting on all the like gowns and everything like that, and realizing, oh my gosh, she's having this, like the baby is coming out right this second. And they turn around to grab a few things, and then I just, you know, I'm sitting on the table, and they've just dropped the bottom. They haven't removed it or anything, and it's not, my feet aren't in stirrups. Again, she said, you know, you can have the baby however you want. So I'm just kind of sitting there, scooted forward enough, you know, that the baby can come out, but in a comfortable position. Okay, sorry, I had to go blow my nose. Hopefully we can survive the rest of this video without my nose running down my face, or the snot running down my face. That was probably too much information. Anyways, and so yeah, I had scooted forward and everything, and then it was just, here comes the baby. And I feel like I didn't black out in that moment, but I don't remember anything. Like, I remember seeing them all scrambling, like the midwife and the med student scrambling to put everything on and catch a baby. And that's all until they put the baby on my chest. Like, it was all just kind of a blur at that point. And so then, you know, they put the baby up there. The nurse comes running in, because they've all pushed the call button. So the nurse comes in, she's like, you did it. It was 6:02, right? And she's about ready to go off of her shift for the day. I'm like, what is it called? So she's about ready to go home. And so she comes running in, and a few minutes later, the nurses that would take care of the baby, you know, and do all the measurements and all that kind of stuff come running in. And they already had all the stuff in there, all the tables, because they're like, you said you go fast, so we're just gonna have everything in here and make sure it's all ready to go. But nobody was in there except the midwife. That's why I was very grateful that she just stayed with me the last few hours, because before, in the past, the doctors come running in basically to catch a baby, just because it happens so fast. And so they come running in, and they're like, oh, sorry, like, we just saw the call button and everything. And so it was just kind of a crazy, like, mess right there as he was already born, and everybody's coming in to take care of me and to take care of him and to figure out what's going on. And the new nurse is also there, you know, for her shift. And so it was just this funny, like, mix of everything. And so yeah, they get him out, you know, they put him on my chest for a little while. And then I delivered the placenta, and I don't want to see any of that kind of stuff. I don't like needles. I never have. I've gotten to a point where I can at least sit there and get them. But most of the time, like, I don't want to see them. I don't want to see any, like, I don't want to see the baby coming out, like crowning, like none of that. Like, no, just no. And it just makes me so sick. And so the midwife was so cute because she pulled, like, the placenta gets delivered and she's holding it up and she's so excited. She's like, isn't this the coolest thing? Like the lifeline for your baby. And I'm like, you do you, girl, you do you. And so her and the med student take it over the side, you know, and examine it. It was cute to see that they're that excited about what they do, which is good. But I was like, I don't really want to see that, but thanks for wanting to share. And then I didn't tear this time. That's the first time I haven't. I probably wouldn't have torn with my last one, except she put her hand by her face when she came out. And so then I tore a little bit weird because she was my smallest and he was just a few ounces bigger. And so that was super nice. I didn't realize how nice. Like, I usually don't have a hard time recovering. I'm usually, even with stitches and stuff, I'm up ready to go. I'm not that sore, but it was even better this time, which I had never realized before how sore I was with stitches until I didn't have them this time. So that was really nice. I'm gonna choke on my spit. But so yeah, it was, I guess, not 12 hours exactly from start to finish, but pretty close. You know, we left our house at like 6 o'clock that morning and my mom had come up to watch kids the day before. So she took care of them while we were in the hospital, which was very nice. And that we just didn't have to worry about them, which with our last few pregnancies, we were all by ourselves. So we just had friends watching the kids. And then my husband just had to leave right after I had the baby to go get our kids and to watch them. And I was in the hospital just all by myself, which was pretty miserable. But so with him being born so late in the day, we didn't know if we'd get to go home the next day because I don't like being there very long. I feel fine. I just want to go home. But the doctor, the pediatrician, was like, as long as his tests all come back and you seem good, then you can go home. And so yeah, my husband didn't stay in the hospital, you know, because you can't sleep on those darn benches in there that they have in the room. So he came home and then he came back the next day to hang out with us throughout the day as we just chilled out, waiting for him to have his 24-hour checkup thing so we could go home. But yeah, so my mom was here just another day after we came home, and then she went back home. And sorry, I don't know if my cheeks are like all rosy. I'm like sweating to death all of a sudden, like holding him and filming and wearing a sweater. I'm like, that's hot. Anyway, so everything's been going good. You know, it's just the normal, like, we don't sleep very much. It's getting better. And then, you know, nursing wasn't as bad this time. I wasn't as engorged, so that was nice. When my milk came in, he was obviously a lot happier. And so that stuff's all been going good. My kids love him to death and they love getting him dressed. We didn't really get him dressed. He's in pajamas today, but we didn't really get him dressed in clothes until his umbilical cord fell out. Just because then we don't have to worry about the pants, the elastic on his belly button. But my kids were so excited. So every day it was like, what is he gonna wear today? It's like he's a little toy, like a doll. They just want to get him dressed. They want to hold him. They've been very helpful taking care of him in those few minutes. Like, it's like, I need to go do something and he's screaming, and they will take him and rock him. And so it's been a very different experience than when we had our other kids, because they were all just so teeny together. But yeah, we're here, we're surviving. Everyone had colds basically the week that we came home from the hospital. So then I got a cold that first week, and that was miserable on top of being sleep deprived and then having a cold. It was just awful. And then he's been a little sniffly, but thankfully it hasn't turned into anything more than that, but it's made it, like, he wants to be cuddled a little bit more and stuff just because his nose is a little stuffy. But yeah, so that's us. We're surviving and trying to get back into somewhat of a normal routine. Homeschool's been okay. My husband is home a lot of the time, except when he has to go on campus to teach. And so he's been doing a lot with them in the morning as I'm still trying to sleep a little bit. But we're doing pretty good and just chugging along. And so I'll try to, have videos up once a week, but I can't guarantee that will even happen for the next month or two. But I just wanted to get on here, give you an update. And I did, yes, I mentioned he was 8 pounds, 8 ounces when he was born. He was 20.5 inches long. And so he is, again, just the kind of normal size for my babies. And well, he's filling out 3-month clothes lengthwise, but my babies are never chubby, never have rolls. So he, like you try to put pants on him and they just fall off and all that kind of stuff, because I just don't have chubby babies. I just have long babies. So I'll give you occasional updates if you would like, if you like getting updates and just hearing how he's doing, how we're doing, and, milestones and all that kind of stuff. I'm totally fine sharing that stuff. And I don't know if there's anything else. If there's things you want to know about, just put them down in the comments. And if I feel comfortable sharing, I will. And I'll try to remember to link those hypnobirthing books and mark which one was my favorite, that I just thought was the most helpful. And I'll put that down below. And I think that's all. My brain is only halfway here today, so hopefully that's everything. But remember to subscribe if you like this kind of content, and come join us over here. We like to try to have some fun and to learn together. And I will see you next time.